Hi guys, today I want to talk about the fascinating underground shafts on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, especially the Osiris Shaft. The Giza Plateau is world famous due to the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids. When people visit Giza, besides admiring the mind-boggling pyramids, you can also see big shafts cut deep into the bedrock and pathways that lead to subterranean mysteries. These shafts and pathways indicate underground chambers or complexes. What could be done there and what purpose did they serve? Here are some aerial photos showing the causeway from the Sphinx to the second Great Pyramid, Khafre. We can distinguish a few shafts on the ground based on their shadows. I highlighted the shafts so we can better identify them. These rectangular shafts are not aligned, not the same size, not evenly spaced, and not exactly oriented in the same direction. They appear to be placed haphazardly. The on-site photos of these shafts show highly impressive and advanced stone cutting work with sharp 90-degree cuts. The shafts were cut straight down into the limestone bedrock, which is not an easy task even if done today. Whoever created these shafts were very sophisticated. We can assume these shafts were excavated based on careful planning and design. The sand and other materials now cover the bottoms of the shafts, so we can't tell how deep they penetrate into the bedrock. The big shafts are currently locked up and remain inaccessible to the general public. Is this mystery therefore out of reach? Fortunately, there is an underground site that is open to certain tourist groups. If we zoom in on the aerial photo, we can see a pathway and a small shaft here. This is the Osiris Shaft, a much smaller shaft compared to the others on the map. In person, it's nothing but extraordinary. By studying the Osiris Shaft, we might gather some ideas on what the bigger shafts are like and what purpose these underground shafts served. Furthermore, because these shafts are within close proximity to the Great Pyramids, we might uncover important clues on the everlasting enigma of the Great Pyramids of Giza. Let's do a quick virtual tour of the Osiris Shaft. I'll point out areas that caught my attention. The Osiris Shaft is a subterranean structure with 3 levels and 3 shafts beneath the surface. Here is the cross-section and the 3D model. First, we enter from this rock-cut pathway, the one we saw on the aerial photo. Then we walk down a short tunnel and see the first shaft that goes down. Climb down the short first shaft. You would land on the first level, which was found empty and seems to be just a landing zone. At the bottom of the shaft, we see obvious tool marks. Now we are at the second shaft. This is a deep shaft, goes straight down for 16 meters or 53 feet, which is about the height of a 5-story building. Now we are at the second level. This level has a central open area and 6 surrounding niches or chambers. The entire structure is carved out from the bedrock. 2 niches still contain large sarcophagi, which are said to be over 5 to 7 tons each. One of these is solid black and surprisingly smooth. We can see large excavation marks everywhere. The striations are evenly spaced and parallel. These large, uniform markings resemble the teeth marks of modern mining machinery. These layered and large parallel markings with slight curvatures have been seen on many ancient megalithic sites around the world, not just in the Osiris Shaft. On Giza Plateau itself, there are megaliths show similar markings. Also, in the underground chamber of the Khufu pyramid, such markings are also present. This means the Osiris Shaft and the Great Pyramids were probably built by the same people with the same methods. Maybe they were all part of a gigantic operation. I have discussed this type of markings and their similarity with modern machine marks in multiple videos on my YouTube channel. If you are interested in megalithic sites, especially the rarely known ones in China, please subscribe and check out my earlier videos. I also made a particular video explaining my thoughts on why these tool marks are highly unlikely to have been created by hand tools, such as chisels or pickaxes. My video link is above. Okay, back to the second level of the Osiris Shaft. On the ceiling of one of the niches, there is an area that shows a dark reddish-brown color, which could be iron oxide. Pottery shards and human remains have been recovered at this level and dated to about 500 BC. However, the rock-cut structure could be much older. It's possible that people discovered this underground structure and repurposed it as a tomb. From the second level, there is the third shaft, about 10 meters or 33 feet down to the third and bottom level. Please pay attention to the large tool marks on the shaft walls. This lowest shaft is in much better condition than the upper two, probably due to less erosion. Therefore, the excavation markings are well preserved. Again, these long and uniform markings resemble modern machine marks. According to Dr. Salam Hassan, who discovered Osiris Shaft in 1933, the third level was under clear water, which allowed him to see an empty sarcophagus in the center. Hassan tried to pump the water out, but was unsuccessful after 4 years. Records show the water table at Giza has fluctuated significantly over time, which can be the cause of the flooding in the third level. In recent years, this level is still flooded most of the time. We can see the flooded area filled with silt, wood platforms, and other debris. This level seems unfinished because there is a narrow tunnel that goes on for an unknown length. What was this tunnel built for? Compared to the well-excavated shafts and chambers, this tunnel is roughly done and the rock here shows a different color and texture. I think the orangey color might derive from iron oxide, and the rock texture looks like crystalline limestone, which is marble. I'm far from a geologist, so this is a layperson's conjecture. The Osiris Shaft is claimed to be an underground tomb known as the Tomb of Osiris, who was the god of fertility, agriculture, the afterlife, and the dead in the ancient Egyptian religion. But this so-called tomb is shockingly different from the real ancient Egyptian tombs. The tombs at the Valley of Kings and the Valley of Queens are incredibly glamorous and extravagantly decorated. They showcase the accomplishments, wealth, and opulence of the ancient Egyptian aristocracy. The Osiris Shaft, however, has zero decoration. There is no mural, no painted ceilings, and the walls are not even finished. Also, the layout of the Osiris Shaft is very different from conventional burial sites. Here are the comparison drawings of the Osiris and some tombs at the Valley of Kings. Compared to the Osiris Shaft, the king's tombs are much more leveled and accessible for humans. They do not have a dramatic elevation drop, and the minor elevation changes are achieved by staircases. The straight-down shafts at the Osiris Shaft could be very difficult for workers or later royalty to pay tribute to their ancestors. For these reasons, I don't think this structure was designed to be a dynastic tomb. The deep shaft with large tool marks, which look like machine marks, have an industrial look. They remind me of modern elevator and mining shafts. By the way, the characteristics of the industrial look, with no decoration, are consistent with the Great Pyramids of Giza. The interior chambers and passageways of the Great Pyramids have no hieroglyphs or decorations, which is again the complete opposite of the real tombs of the Valley of Kings. It's also the complete opposite of the ancient Egyptians' building and aesthetic style. There was no mummy recovered from the Great Pyramids. On top of all of this, during an excavation in the 1850s, an ancient stele with petroglyphs was found at the Temple of Isis on the Giza Plateau. This is the inventory stele. The text on this 2,700-year-old stele implies that the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx, and the Temple of Isis existed before the time of Khufu. Some scholars propose the theory that the Great Pyramids of Giza are not tombs at all, and were not built by ancient Egyptians, but a previous highly advanced civilization. One undeniable fact is that even though the construction method of the Great Pyramids has been extensively researched for generations, so far not a single theory has gained a majority support. To this day, we still don't know how the Great Pyramids were constructed. It is one of the history's most profound mysteries. Anyways, let's continue our discussion on the Osiris Shaft. Because artifacts and sarcophagi can be brought in from elsewhere, such artifacts might not be related to the Osiris Shaft, so I'll only focus on the rock-cut structure. Here are the characteristics that I find interesting. 1. Multiple levels with multiple shafts which are not aligned. 2. The second level has multiple rooms. 3. Tool marks that resemble modern machine marks. 4. Areas on ceilings that look like iron oxide. 5. The tunnel at the lowest level. These features could shine some light on the real purpose of the Osiris Shaft and other local shafts. Remember the big shafts on the Giza Plateau? They share the common traits of being cut into the limestone bedrock and having no decorations whatsoever. I wonder if these shafts were supposed to be connected underground. Compared to nearby shafts, the Osiris Shaft is much smaller and can barely be found in aerial photos. Even though the Osiris Shaft is unassuming from ground level and aerial photos, its three-leveled underground structure is actually quite astonishing. Maybe the other larger shafts have even more impressive and complex underground chambers and passageways. These large-scale shafts exhibit advanced stone-cutting skills with sharp 90-degree angles that is on par with our modern mining and quarrying technology. As I mentioned earlier, the tool marks at the Osiris Shaft is quite uniform and long. These distinctive marks can be found in most places on the shafts and including the second level and the ceilings of the third level. They are very different from the markings of hand tools such as chisels or pickaxes. Here are footages of masons using chisels and pickaxes on stone. Creating long and parallel marks as we see at the Osiris Shaft with hand tools are extremely difficult, if not impossible. Since these markings look like machine marks, is it possible that these markings were actually from ancient machinery similar to what we have today? What if these Giza shafts were ruins of a previous advanced civilization? We know that our current buildings, bridges, and other structures would rust, deteriorate, collapse, and crumble without regular inspection and maintenance. Nature would take over, and the once remarkable metal and glass structures would be completely unrecognizable and wiped out after hundreds or thousands of years of time. Only stone structures would survive. Maybe this was what happened to the previous advanced civilization. Long after their demise, ancient humans discovered the leftover stone caves and the structures and subsequently repurposed them for their own needs. If this was the case, if there was indeed a lost civilization with technologies like ours, and the Giza shafts were really excavated by ancient machinery, then we can make an educated guess on the purpose of the Osiris Shaft and nearby shafts by comparing them with today's structures that closely resemble them. The industrial look of the plain megalithic shafts leads me to think that they were made for utilitarian purposes. The goal was function, not beauty. So what modern underground constructions look like the Osiris Shaft? Since the bottom level is constantly flooded, and older generations of local people remember swimming in the shaft, does that mean these shafts were designed to be water wells? I did talk about the millennia-long catastrophic drought that coincides with the severe human population decrease in my last video. If the Giza shafts were water wells, then they could fit into the drought scenario. I wish it was that straightforward. The ancient history is always way more complicated than we thought. What I'm saying is that I don't think these shafts were water wells. A well is a straight tube, doesn't need to have separate levels or multiple shafts like the Osiris Shaft. and the wells are not built so closely to each other like the shafts on the Giza Plateau. This is not cost efficient. Except for an ancient water system called Connaught, used in the Middle Eastern region, which transport water from an aquifer to the surface through an underground aqueduct in arid plains. These special Connaught wells could be close to one another, but they also line up, unlike the Giza shafts. Hence, the Osiris Shaft was probably not a well. Then what could it have been? What was the real purpose behind these shafts? And how does that purpose relate to the pyramids on top? I have a theory that might potentially explain the 5 characteristics of the Osiris Shaft, which I have hinted at earlier. Since there is still a lot of interesting information to be discussed, plus I don't want to wait too long to upload a new video, I decided to get this one out first and save my discovery and findings for the next video. If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. I have a wide range of topics that I want to share with you. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.